Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Orphaned Secrets. Episode 11. Chapter 63. Jasper's POV. Over the last week, Svetlana has been going to each pack around the region and gathering DNA samples from not only all of the alphas but their upcoming successors as well. I wasn't aware that so many alphas were getting ready to step down and give their TLES to their sons or even their beta's sons. At first, I wasn't too keen on allowing the alphas to put others in harm's way by getting them involved. But a lot of them, including Richard, pointed out that these types of scenarios provide an opportunity for great life training. Though I doubted a situation like this would ever arise again in one's lifetime, I understood their point of view. So, instead of 12 alpha DNA samples, Svetlana now had over 24 samples that included current alphas and their would-be successors. The plan was already risky enough without adding more moving parts, and I was wary that this would tip off Killian that it was all a ploy to force him to reveal his plans to us. Jonah reminded me that actual alpha meetings included immediate successors and betas, so incorporating them would make the most sense and also legitimize things even more. I knew I had to keep a level head when dealing with a psychopath like Killian, but I was beginning to resent him even more for hijacking any sense of normalcy in our lives. At this rate, I would never catch up on the work that continued to pile up as I agonized over the flawless execution of our plan. Alpha Jasper. A familiar voice interrupted my train of thought, and I looked up to see Svetlana in my office. Svet, I stood up from my desk and quickly closed the door. Are you out of your mind? You can't just teleport in here, there are humans in this building. My assistant being one of them. You worry too much. Your assistant isn't even at her desk. She what? I peered out of the window, and sure enough, Adriana wasn't there. I grunted in frustration at her sudden disappearance. I will have to reprimand her for leaving her desk without permission. I turned my attention back to Svetlana. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be working on getting these clones made? I am going to, but first, I thought you would like to know who the dark witch is that is helping this Patterson fellow, she replied while raising her brows in a taunting manner. Wait, what? You know who she is? I reversed course, suddenly interested in what she had to say to me. I do not know her personally, but I have heard of her. She's been around a while, but not as long as I or Olivia, or even Opal for that matter. But she is known for her over-the-top spells and potions. I thought you killed Opal. Killed her? No, she was my rival, and I wanted her powers. She's my prisoner until I drain her. That's gross. Not her blood, you silly wolf. Her magic. When I've drained her of all her magic, I will let her go. She'll be completely mortal and won't be able to harm a fly. I just quirked an eyebrow at her. So, the witch helping Patterson, her name is Morgan. Well, her name is actually Morgana, but she hates it, so took out the last A and goes by Morgan. Anyway, she has only been around a couple of 100 years, and rumor has it, Patterson saved her from a pack of rogues about 30 years ago, and she became indebted to him. Why would a dark witch indebt themselves to a werewolf? I asked her, confused. It wasn't by choice, trust me. Dark witches would rather cut off their own tongue than owe favors to any supernatural, especially ones beneath them. I was going to ignore the fact that she just insinuated that werewolves were beneath witches. And what about you? Me? You think I am indebted to you? Not me. Sarin. Oh, Xandra, I am not indebted to your mate, Jasper. I simply just want to remain, How you say, in her good graces. She is very powerful and getting stronger as time passes. Why would I want to be on the wrong side of her powers? So, her killing Alessandro has nothing to do with you wanting to help us at the drop of a dime. I provoked her, calling her on her bullsh-t. I smirked as she glared at me. Do you want my help or not? She snapped. I threw my hands up and held up my little white flag. I loved to irritate her. Tell me more about Morgan, I said kindly. Not much to tell. She's a weak witch. What? You just said she has crazy potions and spells. I did. But just because she knows crazy potions and spells does not mean she is powerful. A powerful witch does not need spells and potions to help her fight. She uses her personal powers. Spells and potions are used to enhance a witch's craft, but when a witch solely relies on them, they can't do sh-t in a magical fight. Why do you think Opal was no match for Olivia? I see. So, does this mean you're going to help us fight when the time comes? Well, if you really want me to, then I guess I could be of service, she replied sarcastically. Are you sure you're not turning into a light witch there, Svetlana? I mocked her. She scoffed and grunted at me. Do not insult me, Alpha Jasper, she snapped and disappeared out of my office, only to come back 2 seconds later. I almost forgot. Morgan does not know that the Luna is a primordial. She only thinks that she is a blessed wolf. You might be able to use that to your advantage. She vanished once more, only to appear again. One more thing. Last time, I swear. Perhaps creating multiple clones to with Patterson's head might be a good decoy later. No, she suggested and departed for good this time. I immediately thought about what she just said. Morgan doesn't know that Sarin is a primordial. That would also mean that Kellen and Cale Thornwood didn't either. Even knowing who Sarin is, an alpha by both her parents' blood, they don't know what she is. Svetlana was right, this could actually work in our favor. I didn't forget about the last suggestion she made, but I would have to run that by everyone else before deciding. I needed to get home and talk to Sarin first though. I opened the door and saw that Adriana was back in her seat. Adriana. Mr. Valencia, she quickly stood to her feet and pushed down her pencil skirt. Where were you 10 minutes ago? Oh, I went to use the ladies' room, and then I got caught up with my lunch delivery, she answered and pointed to the takeout box on her desk. Oh, well, next time, if you're going to step away, at least tell me first. Yes, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. Is there anything else? She asked nervously. Cancel the rest of my day. Also, clear everything from my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Sir? You just came back a few weeks ago. We just had a job fair. I literally have HR sending me hundreds of applications to go through. Adriana, you've been my assistant since I took over the company. You know the type of people I want to hire. Go through the applicants and then send me ones that you think are worthwhile. But Mr. Valencia, Look, I have a lot of issues at home I need to deal with. If you really need help, then ask Casper to help you. He's my VP for a reason. Yes, sir. I nodded my head and gathered my things to head home. I could only pray that Sarin wasn't going to murder me when she heard my next stupid idea. Are you insane? Sarin screamed at me. When I got home, the first thing I did was grab Sarin away from the others and dragged her upstairs to our room. I made sure the door was locked and had her sit down before telling her my crazy new idea. Look, I know it's crazy, but... Crazy? You think letting myself get kidnapped by Cale Thornwood is crazy? No, Jasper. It's absolutely ludicrous. You said so yourself that Cale Thornwood would never hurt you. No, I said that Cale Thornwood would possibly not kill me. That is very different, Jasper. Which makes no difference anyway because I am not going to just give myself to Cale Thornwood Patterson. Sarin, less than 2 weeks ago, you ran out of Golden Moon like a bat out of hell, hell-bent on killing Killian. Had William not stopped you, you would have gone in there with no plan and no backup. She held her tongue and glared at me, knowing that I caught her being hypocritical. At least now, we have a plan, there will be backup, and you get to go in and practically mock them to your heart's desire. That was different, Jasper. I didn't know that I was pregnant. I don't think your pregnancy should be an excuse. What? Jasper, how could you even say that? That's not what I meant, and you know it. Don't put words in my mouth, Sarin. Gah! Don't call me that, she griped, covering her ears. Ugh, why did my mom have to name me Ryan? Well, we can always have Alexa send you back in time, and you can ask her yourself, I suggested. That seemed to pique her interest. Sarin, this pup is just as important to me as he or she is to you. But, what I meant to say is that I don't think you need to worry about him or her. You're tenacious, and I can guarantee that our pups are just as stubborn as you. Remember what you went through when you were pregnant with Sam? You went through more stress than anyone should ever go through, and yet, you still grew and delivered a healthy pup. Our pup. Our son. If you can go through all of that, there's no reason why you can't go through something as simple as faking a kidnapping. And what if Cale Thornwood tries to hurt our pup? He won't. You don't know that. Cale Thornwood is just as unstable as Killian is. And he killed Sam in my vision. And we already stopped that from happening. Cale Thornwood is not coming for Sam. He would be stupid to come after him. And here, no less, where Sam is one of the most protected pack members. Cale Thornwood may be B.Raisin, but just like Killian, he's not stupid. He wouldn't risk hurting Sam, or this pup, even if he were to find out about it. What do you mean by if? Sarin, you're barely a few weeks pregnant, if that. Your scent is still the same. It won't change for a few weeks anyway, I reassured her. But we don't even know when we're going to be putting all of the plans in motion. Then we get Svetlana to mask the pup's scent. She scoffed and threw her arms in the air. I cannot believe that you actually want me to go in there, willingly. No, I don't want you to go in there. If I could tie you to Thebed here I would, but we both know that literally, nothing can hold you down. And I know for a fact that this pregnancy won't stop you from trying to get in on the fight. You're too obsessed with wanting to avenge your parents. I'm simply giving you a reason to actually go in, I told her bluntly. You just hate the fact that this isn't on your terms. She scowled at me, crossed her arms, and turned her face away from me. I hate you, she muttered. I shook my head and chuckled at her. I pinched her chin delicately and had her face me. She was still scowling, but I knew she wasn't actually mad at me. Her mood was just sour because she couldn't be mad at me. No, you love me. You just hate that I know you so well, I teased. You're insane. But you love me anyway. Stop it. No. Jasper, she hollered in annoyance at me. I just gave her a cheesy smile. She scoffed but couldn't help but laugh at me. I cannot stand you. But you still love me. She whined, making me laugh even more at her. She shoved me slightly, making me fall over because I was kneeling in front of her. I pulled her down with me and had her land on top of me. She pushed herself up and got into a straddling position. I saw how our bodies were and quirked a brow at her while simultaneously thrusting upwards. Jasper. Stop being horny, she smacked my c.hest and got up. Hey. I was enjoying myself. I replied while sitting up. She sat on the edge of the bed, and I kneeled in front of her again. I don't want you to go in there. I really don't. But if there is one thing I hate to admit, it's that I know I can't stop you. But I also trust you to do the right thing. Don't go in there just to kill them. Don't seek vengeance, dearest, seek justice. Her whole body relaxed at my words, and she let out a deep sigh. Justice. Yeah, justice. For everyone that the Pattersons have ever hurt. You, Kelsey and the others, your mom, Xandra, and Alexa, and all of the people they killed recently. Show them who you really are. Show Kellen why your mother was meant to be with your father. Show Cale Thornwood why he was never meant to have you. Show him that he's not good enough for you. Oh, and you think you are, she taunted me. Think? Woman, I know I am. Keep telling yourself that, she replied with provocation. Sarin Calloway, are you challenging me? Of course I am, Jasper Valencia. After all, I outrank you. I'll show you who outranks who. I said and gently tackled her onto the bed and started to tickle her. Ah! No! She screamed and started to laugh hyst Kellenly. I made sure not to put too much weight on her, but I also knew that if she wanted to push me off, she could. Our tickle fest ended up turning into hot and passionate lovemaking. Since I would have to go into hiding soon, I wanted to make the last few moments I had with her worthwhile. I also made sure to let her know about Svetlana's suggestion about making multiple clones of the alphas to create decoys for Kellen after we had our fill of each other. Sarin was on board with that idea because she knew the confusion could be used to our advantage. One thing Sarin knew about Kellen was that he didn't work well under pressure and neither did Cale Thornwood. I was able to get all of the alphas and the elders on board with this as well. We would use one set of clones for the alpha meeting to take place where Kellen and Cale Thornwood would potentially come to kill all of us. Then we would use the rest of the clones to ambush them. I just hoped that everything went as planned. Chapter 64. Sarin's POV. After focusing so much time and energy on others, I thought it would be a nice change of pace to schedule my first prenatal visit before our plans were set in motion. I really wanted Jasper to be able to experience our first ultrasound together before he went into hiding. It was the least I could do, considering that was a major sore spot since he wasn't present for the ones during my pregnancy with Sam. On the day of the visit, we were waiting for Sirena and Dr. Andrews to come in with the machine, and Jasper was already a hot mess. He kept pacing back and forth constantly in the examination room, to the point that he started to give me anxiety. Jasper, will you please stop pacing? I can't help it, Sarin. I mean, we're finally going to see the pup. How are you not nervous? Because this isn't my first time. I answered. He stopped dead in his tracks and pouted at me. Sorry, you know I'm not trying to rub it in your face or anything, but you really need to stop pacing. You're making me dizzy. Jasper scowled again but finally brought the chair in the corner over to the bedside and sat down. Who was with you when you had the first one? You mean with Sam? He nodded. Your mom. She's the one who figured it out, actually. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Jasper, why can't you let it go? It's been almost 2 years now. I thought I had. But hearing that you're pregnant again is bringing back all the memories of the SHT that I didn't do as a father. I mean, you have no idea how much I wanted a family with you, and the moment it happened, I wasn't myself. That kind of horrible memory can definitely up one's psyche. Oh, Jasper, I wanted to comfort him, but the door opened, and Cyrena and Dr. Andrews came in. Alpha, Luna, how are we doing this morning? He greeted us. We're having some issues we need to work through, but other than that, we're perfectly fine, Doctor, I replied while eyeing Jasper. All right then, let's see if there's another alpha pup in there, shall we? He suggested happily. Once they got the machine up and running, Cyrena handed the wand to Dr. Andrews, and Jasper jumped back, his expression extremely concerned. Don't worry, Alpha, Cyrena reassured him with a smile. All males freak out seeing the wand for the first time. What is it for? Dr. Andrews is going to insert the wand into the Luna's pelvis through the vaginal canal to see the pup. I thought this was an ultrasound? Where's the cold gel and all that jazz? Jasper, calm down. The wand is because I'm so early into the pregnancy, I told him and smacked his arm for being overly dramatic. That's right, Alpha. The wand allows me to see the pup more clearly. At this stage, conducting a traditional abdominal ultrasound wouldn't detect an image of the pup yet. We use that method after month 3, Dr. Andrews explained as he lifted up the groan and gently inserted the wand inside of me. I scrunched my face at how weird it felt since the only things that ever went in there were Jasper's fingers, tongue, and DCK. All right, let's see now. Dr. Andrews moved the wand around a bit, and sure enough, a small BLP appeared on the screen. Look right there, Alpha, Cyrena pointed to the TV connected to the machine. Where? There, that little peanut-looking thing. Is that the pup? Sure is. Congratulations, Alpha and Luna. Cyrena announced with a big smile. Holy crap, that's a baby, Jasper said, totally in awe as he got up close to the screen. He traced his finger around the pup. I couldn't stop the smile that overtook my face seeing how intrigued he was. Doctor, can you tell if it's a boy or girl yet? Ha ha ha. No, Alpha, it's still too soon. That also takes place at month 3, Dr. Andrews laughed at Jasper wholeheartedly. Is it just one? I asked, and Jasper turned around so fast that I thought his head would spin. Yes, Luna. It appears that there is only one. Why do you ask? Were you expecting more? Dr. Andrews replied. Oh no, it's just that Jasper wants so many pups and suggested that I have twins or triplets at some point. Oh, my goddess! Cyrena exclaimed. Alpha, are you trying to put the poor Luna into an early grave? What? There's nothing wrong with wanting a lot of kids. Jasper defended. Be that as it may, Alpha, you're not the one who has to carry them, she scolded, smacking him on the arm. Did you just smack me? Jasper looked at her, stunned. Yes, and it's because the Luna is out of reach to do it herself, Cyrena mocked and walked out of the room. Dr. Andrews was trying so hard not to laugh as he cleaned up and handed me some tissues to wipe myself. Here you go, Alpha, enjoy these. Dr. Andrews handed Jasper several printouts of the ultrasound. Jasper snatched them out of his hands and smiled again as he looked at the photos. Thank you, Dr. Andrews, I said on both of our behalves. Always a pleasure, Luna, he responded and patted the back of my hand before leaving me alone with Jasper. 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 Hey? What? He finally looked at me. I glared at him, and he just smiled. Can you hand me my leggings, please? Oh, sure, he replied. As soon as he handed them to me, his eyes went straight back to the printouts. As annoyed as I was actually quite happy to see him so invested in them. I guess this was how he would have reacted had he been there when I was carrying Sam. Who knows, given Sam was first, he may have been even worse. When I finished getting dressed, I snatched the photos from Jasper so I could see them myself. He frowned and pouted like a child, and for a split second, he looked just like Sam. Oh my God, that's where Sam gets it, I said, staring up at him. Gets what? The pouting and frowning. The way your LP just quivered while doing it. Sam does the exact same thing when I take something from him. And only when I take something from him. I don't pout. You can't be saying SHT like that out loud, dearest. I'm the alpha, and I have a reputation to uphold, he insisted while looking around to make sure no one was listening. Really? I mocked him. Instead of replying, he glared and snatched the photos back, and out of the hospital. Hey! I wasn't done looking at those. I shouted after him. By the time I had even finished my statement, he was gone. I scoffed and just shook my head. Luna. I turned to see Irene. Oh, Irene, hi. I said with a smile. She came and gave me a How are you? Good. I think, she replied. Doesn't sound like you're doing so good, I pointed out. Well, I overheard you and the alpha talking about, the pregnancy. Congratulations, by the way. And well, she trailed off and suddenly looked 3 times paler than she normally did. And for someone who has red hair, she looked really pale. Irene, what's wrong? If you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, you can tell me through your thoughts, I suggested to make it easier on her. I found that some pack members spoke more freely with their thoughts than trying to express physical words in a conversation. She nodded her head eagerly and projected her thoughts to me rather quickly. Oh, was all I could say when she finished. Yet. Have you told Keaton? I asked. She shook her head and bit her bottom lip. I held both of her hands and just smiled. Do you want me to go with you? She nodded her head. Okay, come on. I led her out of the hospital, and I mind-linked Keaton on the way and asked him to meet me in my office. Do you think we should tell Dylan and the betas? She asked as we headed there. Not just yet. This is something for the two of you to enjoy privately, well, semi-privately, I answered while referring to myself. When we arrived at my office, Keaton was already waiting. Luna? Sweetheart? Is everything okay? Keaton gulped as he stood straight up. Well, it depends on how you look at it. I replied and pushed my door open. They both went in, and I followed after while closing the door behind me. I went over to my desk and had them both sit on the opposite side in the guest chairs. Sarin, what's going on? Keaton asked me informally. I always allowed him to drop the honorifics behind closed doors whenever we were alone. Jasper hated it, but he allowed Keaton to call him by his first name during an informal conversation, so why couldn't I? Well, Irene here has something she would like to tell you, I replied to him. He shifted in his chair to look at her, and she was twirling her fingers in her lap, avoiding his gaze. Yoahoo, Earth to Irene. She snapped her head up to look at me. I gestured to Keaton, who was still waiting for her to tell him what she needed to say. Oh, well. I have good news, she stated more like a question. I slumped my shoulders and tilted my head at her lack of confidence in the matter. Okay, yeah, that doesn't sound good at all, Keaton responded and looked over at me. I shook my head and pointed at Irene. This was between the two of them. I was just here for moral support. No, it's good, at least, I think it's good. I mean, I know it's good, it's just that I don't know if you would think it's good, but I hope that you would. Irene spoke a million miles a minute. She was talking so fast, I was afraid that Keaton didn't understand a word she said. Irene, sweetie, you can tell me anything. Whatever it is, we can get through it together, Keaton told her reassuringly. The moment he said those words, she broke down in tears and pulled out what appeared to be an at-home pregnancy test. I could easily see the 2 blue lines. Keaton took it from her, and you could just see the wheels turning in his head as he realized what the little stick implied. He looked back at Irene, then at me, and then back down to the test in his hand. He was so silent, it was almost creepy. Keaton. Irene sobbed. Does this mean what I think it means? Irene, are you pregnant? Yes, she whimpered, afraid of his reaction. His eyes went wide, and without saying anything, he threw the test into the air as he howled with absolute happiness. Yahoo! Yes! 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 I'm going to be a father? Are you for real right now? Yeah, she whimpered again. Keaton practically tackled her out of the chair and started to kiss her all over her face. Keaton! Don't be so rough with her! I shouted at him. He paused and looked down and saw he had put his entire body weight on her. Oh, SHT, SHT, SHT. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. He got up and pulled her with him. He looked her over once more, and when he saw she was fine, he picked her up and spun her around in circles. Keaton! I'm going hurl, she cried out. But he didn't stop. He was screaming with joy while Irene was trying to hold on to him for dear life. Seriously? Put me down, she screamed again. He heard her this time, and sure enough, she ran straight to the nearest garbage bin and started to vomit. Oh, SHT, I muttered. Hearing and seeing her throw up was making my stomach feel queasy as well. Congratulations! I shouted before I ran out of my office, holding my hand to my mouth, and went straight for the guest bathroom 2 doors down. Thankfully, I made it to the toilet in time. I was in such a hurry to get there, I forgot to close the door, and I felt someone patting my back. It wasn't Jasper though. I looked up from the toilet and saw Melody. Hi, I muttered before puking again. I don't miss these days, she said while she held my hair back and continued to pat my back. When I was done emptying my stomach, I sat back and blew my nose into some toilet paper before flushing it. How'd you know I was in here? Well, for one, I could hear you throwing up from my floor, and 2, we heard the shouting and came running up to make sure everything was okay, she answered. Everything is fine. You and Kendrick should go into my office. Keaton and Irene are there. She's the reason why I got sick. Ken's in there now. I could hear her throwing up too. What's going on? Oh, my goddess! Is she? Melody's tone changed drastically when she put the pieces together, which didn't take long. I nodded my head and she double-checked to make sure I was okay before running out of the bathroom into my office. 3 seconds later, I could hear more shouting, howling, and squealing. "What the hell is going on out there?" Jasper shouted as he stormed out of his office. "So that's where he ran away to. I heard him go into my office. What the hell? Where is Sarin?" "In here, Jasper." I called out to him from the bathroom floor. He came rushing in, and I just smiled. "Tink, are you okay?" "Fine, just a little domino effect morning sickness," I replied. He looked at me and moved his head. "Irene," was all I said before he, too, had put the dots together. He smiled and helped me to my feet as we went back into my office to see Keaton crushing Irene to death and Kendrick and Melody smiling at them approvingly. "Bro, you have to tell Dad," Kendrick told him. "Dad can wait," Keaton exclaimed as his smile reached his ears. "I can wait on what?" We turned to the door and saw Dylan with Leanne in his arms. "Dad, give Leanne to me," Kendrick instructed as he reached for his daughter. She reached for him at the same time and had the brightest smile. "Okay, what's going on?" Dylan asked. "Dad. I'm going to be a dad," Keaton shouted. "What?" Dylan exclaimed in surprise. Without saying another word, Keaton placed a hand on Irene's stomach and rubbed it gently while cheesing. Jasper and I couldn't stop the laughs that came out of our mouths at his utter excitement. "Irene, honey, is this true?" Dylan confirmed with her. She nodded her head and showed him the pregnancy test as well. Dylan didn't say anything as he went to them and hugged them both. After a minute or so, he opened one arm towards Kendrick and Melody and they went to join them. Jasper and I looked at each other at the same time, and we left them to their family. Ug. We went back into his office and closed the door behind us. Jasper brought me over to the small couch and had me sit on his lap. I leaned my head back and rested on his shoulder as he held me with both arms tight around my waist and his hands flat against my belly. "Svetlana called a minute ago," he told me. "What did she say?" "She said that the clones are done and that she's getting the first group ready to take our places. She just finished the final memory installations into Griffin's and Richard's clones." "Richard?" I questioned and sat up to look at him. "I thought Richard wasn't going to do it." Jonah convinced him to. "Since Richard still hasn't actually given over his alpha power to Griffin, it's best that Richard take part in it as well for political reasons." Jonah gave his sample at the last minute too. "What?" "That's what I said," Jasper replied and leaned his head back to rest on the back of the couch. I just shook my head and leaned back again. We sat in comfortable silence, just enjoying each other's company, but we were interrupted by a knock on the door. Jasper gently lifted me off of him and went to go answer it. He peeked his head out, and all I heard him say was "Go away," sounding annoyed. I immediately knew it was Kendrick. "Come on, man. I'm going to be an uncle, you have to celebrate with me," Kendrick whined. "I'm trying to enjoy my last few moments with my mate. Plus, my mom is bringing Sam to us. Family only. I'm your family too, head. I'm practically your brother-in-law. Or have you forgotten that I'm mated to your sister?" "Quit reminding me," Jasper muttered and let him. Melody came in after him with Leanne next to her as she quickly punched Jasper in the arm. "What was that for?" he complained. "For being a douche to the father of my daughter," she retorted and took a seat next to me. Jasper was about to close the door, but Grace stopped him, and Sam came running in. He ran straight to me, completely ignoring Jasper. "Sam. Daddy is right here," he pouted. "Mommy." Sam replied and grabbed my face with his tiny hands. Hi, baby boy, did you have fun with Grandma and Grandpa? Yeah. Sam, Mommy, and Daddy have good news, I told him and put him on my lap. Good news. I nodded my head and smiled. Jasper came over and took his place next to me as he scooped up Sam to put onto his lap. Sam, Mommy has a baby growing in her tummy, Jasper told him and pointed at my stomach. Baby. Sam repeated and pointed at my stomach as well. I nodded and smiled. But instead of smiling like I'd hoped he would, Sam scowled at me. Samson. No. No baby. Sam screamed at the top of his lungs and started to cry. That was not the reaction I was expecting, Kendrick mentioned, trying to contain his laughter. I snapped my head towards him and growled. He pressed his L.P.S. trying not to laugh even more. Even Melody was trying to contain her laughter. I looked back at Sam, who was now bawling his eyes out while clutching onto Jasper. Jasper was just as horrified and confused as I was. This was definitely not the reaction I was expecting. Chapter 65. Griffin's POV. My mind has been going in circles since the day we agreed to Jasper's unorthodox plan. It was a lot to digest, and I wondered if a clone could really replace me within the pack without anyone noticing. Would the people aware of my clone be able to keep up the charade? And don't get me started on Xandra's troubling glimpse of the future. I had so many reservations about it all. My nerves were shot after dealing with so many things one after the other since assuming the position of Alpha. So imagine my surprise when I found out that Richard and Elder Jonah both decided to submit their DNA samples to the witch as well. A part of me was still against this plan, mostly because we were going to work with that dark witch. I couldn't get past the fact that, at one point, she wanted Killian because she was under the impression he was Keaton's son. When I got word that Svetlana was coming to Golden Moon to collect our samples, I had expected an older woman to show up. I was completely floored when someone, who looked to be in her late 20s to early 30s, appeared out of thin air in my office. Hello, she said in a heavy Russian accent. Whose spot are you? I growled. Calm down, my name is Svetlana. I was sent by Alpha Jasper, she answered. You're Svetlana. Day. Is there a problem? No, I expected someone, well, older. I'm over 1,000 years old. How much older do I need to be? What? Has anyone ever told you that talking about a woman's age is disrespectful? I moved an eyebrow at her. Where is the Alpha? You're looking at him, I replied. Oh, so you are Griffin, she noted with a sly smile. You are the mate that Sarin rejected, she mocked. I honestly hated hearing her name, especially now that I have Xandra. I know that you are not fond of me, Alpha Griffin, however, if it makes you feel any better, I never planned on taking her firstborn child, even if he were born of beta blood, she admitted while walking around my office as if she owned it. I snapped my eyes towards her. What? Sarin. She had no money when she came to me for the poison she wanted to kill her target with, so she offered her firstborn child to me, promising that it would be of beta blood. I took her payment, but I wasn't going to actually see Cale Thornwood it in. This was news to me. Even Jasper and his pack were still under the impression that Svetlana would have taken Killian had he been Keaton's son and not mine. I don't understand, I replied, not knowing what else to say. She stopped dead in her tracks to look at me and gave me a serious expression. I may be a dark witch, but I am not a monster. I draw the line at children and babies, she explained with the utmost sincerity. Sarin was, how you say, a troubled soul. Tell me something that I don't know, I retorted while averting my eyes towards the ground. She loved you. I irked my head up to look her in the eye and furrowed my brows. What the hell are you talking about? She rejected me after one night together via hotel notepad and pen. I don't know where you get love out of that. I know, I heard about what she did to you. But, what you and everyone else do not know is that Sarin came to me again after she had killed Lizzie and asked for the potion that would suppress the mate bond. Why? Why else? She wanted to stop loving you. She wanted to suppress the bond but not break it while she seduced the young beta of Jasper's pack. She loved you both but for different reasons. She loved him because of his blood rank and, of course, because she was obsessed with him from the moment she laid eyes on him. Her words, not mine. And then you came along. Her destined mate, the one man she never thought she would ever meet or, at least, was hoping to never meet. She knew that if she ever met her destined mate, her decision to be with Keaton would falter, and she would choose you. However, her thirst for rank and power clouded her judgment, and she did the unthinkable. Yet, no matter what, she didn't want to fully let you go. Which is why she rejected you through paper and pen. You and I both know that is not the right way to reject the werewolf-mate bond. I'd my eyebrows, knowing that she was right. Even though it wasn't verbal, rejection is still rejection. But, unless she were to say it to my face, and I accepted it, we were still tied together partially. Why are you telling me all of this? I asked Svetlana. Because I can sense the reserve that you have when it comes to me and the fact that I played a part in Sarin's schemes that got an innocent woman killed and almost cost you your son, she replied. But for what it's worth, I would have taken him solely to return him to you. Hey! When Sarin came to me for the potion to forget you, she was already pregnant, and I could already tell that the fetus was not of ranked blood. If I had taken him as payment, I would have tracked you down to return him to his father since his mother obviously didn't care enough about him that she would gamble his life away before ever giving birth to him. Are you sure you're a dark witch? Ugh, what is with alphas doubting my dark craft, she huffed. Anyway, that's all I needed to say. Do you have the DNA samples? She asked, quickly changing the subject. I stared off into space for a moment before reaching into the drawer of my desk to get the 3 samples. Here you. One for me, Richard, and an elder. An elder? Well, this is even more serious than I would have imagined, she smiled, examining the vials of blood. Before I could say anything, my door swung open, and there stood Xandra. Her eyes widened as she looked between Svetlana and me. And who is this lovely young woman? Svetlana asked. Griffin, who is this? Xandra questioned in return. I came around my desk and went straight to Xandra, bringing her into my arms. Xandra, this is the witch that Jasper sent, I answered. Oh, you're Svetlana. Da. Funny, I pictured you older, Xandra blurted out, making me cough while trying to suppress my laughter as Svetlana scowled. What? What did I say? Svetlana eyed Xandra up and down and circled around us a few times while sniffing her. What? What are you doing? Xandra demanded. You smell like her. Like whom? I asked. Sarin. I do. Xandra asked. Same DNA, Svetlana stated matter-of-factly. I mean, we are half-sisters, Xandra replied. Svetlana's eyes widened like saucers. She looked at me and then back at Xandra, blinking several times before smiling. It is a pleasure, she said and reached for a handshake. Xandra hesitated a second before shaking her hand. Pertinent information that is needed for the clone's memory that you almost failed to mention, Griffin, she scolded me. What? That my mate was Sarin's sister. Yes. You do understand that these clones have to mimic your everyday lives until whatever it is you all plan to do to Kellen Patterson is put into motion, do you not? Having a mate that is also the sister to Sarin is very informative. Anything else I need to know? I have a twin that's mated to our beta, Xandra replied. Svetlana looked at me disapprovingly. I shrugged my shoulders in defense. No one taught me anything about clones 101. Anything else? No, I answered quickly. Even though she was on our side, and she tried to give me peace of mind by telling me that crap about Tareen, I still didn't trust her with some private information. Especially that Xandra and Alexa are also biologically related to Kellen. Very well. These are the set of samples that I needed. Your clones will be completed by the end of tomorrow. I suggest you get ready to go into hiding, but do not tell anyone where you are going. You don't want the wrong people finding out. Yeah, sure, got it, I replied. With that, Svetlana disappeared from my office. What was that all about? Xandra confronted me. What? You just lied to her, that's what. Xandra, she's a dark witch. Who is trying to help us get the upper hand on my birth father. You know, the man who has ruined so many lives and killed countless others. So, what, you want to just tell her that Kellen is your birth father? What if she turns against us or is working for him behind our backs? Why are you so paranoid? You heard what Jasper and Sarin said. She's on Sarin's side. You know more than I do how powerful Sarin is. I don't think even a dark witch such as Svetlana would be able to handle Sarin if she were to get seriously pissed off, Xandra argued. Why are you defending her? I'm not defending anyone, Griffin. I'm simply stating a fact. Sarin is powerful. Svetlana would be stupid to go against her. Ergo, Svetlana isn't working for Kellen. I just stared at her. Although her logic made sense, I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of admitting it just yet. And besides, if she tries to come after Killian, she will have to go through me first. What did you say? Instead of replying, she just smiled and hugged my WAST as she leaned into my C.Hest. I know at first I was worried that you had a son and that you had him with your first mate, but I've come to accept the fact that you two are a one-package deal. I can't have one without the other, and I don't want to either. I don't know how to put it into words, but the last few months I've been able to get to know Killian, even just playing with him, has really shown me what it's like to be a mom in a way. I love the feeling I get from it, and it's been sort of healing for me to experience it. Killian may not be mine, but I want to make him mine. He already is. He's my son. As my mate and Luna, he's your son too, I told her and leaned my head on top of hers. I already know that, but I meant more of a permanent kind of way. I pulled back from her enough to look down at her face. What do you mean by permanent, Xandra? I want to adopt Killian, she confirmed with a genuine smile that warmed my heart instantly. I want to be his mom. I want to be the mom he never got to have. That Alexa and I never got to have. You're serious? I asked her to double-check. Yes. I stared at her blankly as she smiled and brought her hand to my face. Her thumb swiped under my eye, and it was then I realized that I was crying. I didn't say a word, afraid that I would ruin this beautiful moment between us. I embraced her as tight as I could while burying my face into her neck, letting go of all of my feelings, and sobbed into the crevice of her neck. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear those words to release so much pent-up emotion. I felt her hold me as tight as she could while one hand lightly patted the back of my head. "Thank you, Xandra. I love you so much." "You don't have to thank me, babe. I love you too, and I love Killian." I nodded my head and tightened my grip. After a few minutes of just holding each other, I finally got my emotions together and gently pulled away. "You good?" she asked me. I nodded my head and sniffled while wiping away the mucus dripping from my nose. "Okay, so, when can we do this? You want to do it now?" I asked her, surprised. "I want to do it as soon as possible. I don't know how adoptions work, so you're going to have to get all this taken care of before you leave, Griffin." You're right." Okay, let me think," I said and clicked my tongue against my cheek. "Well, Jonah is still in the pack house, which works out perfectly since we need an elder to conduct the adoption. Thomas, my sister's mate, can draw up the papers since he's a lawyer for the pack." "Perfect. Let's get this show on the road," she announced with pure enthusiasm. I couldn't believe it. Xandra really wanted to be Killian's mother. I never told her this or anyone for that matter, but Killian has wanted to call her mom for the last few weeks. The other night when I went to put him to bed, he asked, "Where's mommy?" and I told him the same old story. I told him that she was in a better place and with the moon goddess. I never expected him to cry as hard as he did and ask me why Xandra had left him. It was then I realized that he already associated Xandra as his mom and not Tarine. It was clear he doesn't even remember Tarine. In his eyes, Xandra was his mom, and I felt horrible having to explain to him that Xandra wasn't his mother. That broke his little heart even more, and it nearly killed me to see him so sad. I felt like I had traumatized him all over again. But now, all of that was about to change. After speaking with Jonah and my brother-in-law, I mind-linked my mom and told her to have everyone come to my office and to bring Killian. She, of course, had to ask a million questions because she was enjoying her day with him. An hour later, my office was filled with my parents, my sister's family, Richard, Jonah, and of course, Xandra and me. "Hey buddy, come to daddy," I instructed Killian. I got down on my knees to his level. "I have some good news for you," I told him clearly so that everyone else could hear too. Xandra was standing to my right, and I could feel her smiling down on us. "Griffin, can I tell him?" she interrupted. I looked up at her, and she seemed really eager, so I nodded my head. Xandra got down on her knees too and stared straight into Killian's eyes. She grabbed both of his tiny little hands. "Killian, I know that you've had it rough the 2.5 years you've been living your life, and I can't tell you how sorry I am that you had to go through so much at such a young age. But I want to tell you that if you let me, I want to make sure that you never feel that pain ever again. If you let me, I want to love you like you're my own baby and give you all of the unconditional love a mother can give to her pup. If you let me, I promise to protect you with every fiber of my being. I promise to read you bedtime stories, cook your favorite meals, buy your favorite toys, play with you whenever you ask, and even sneak dessert before dinner when Grandma isn't watching," Xandra joked as she glanced over at my mom, who was a blubbering mess, and made her laugh a little. "I promise to be the best mother any kid has ever asked for. I can't promise that I'll be perfect, but I promise that I will try my best. So, what do you say, Killian? Can I be your mommy?" Xandra asked as tears were threatening to spill. Killian just stared at her a minute without saying anything or reacting to a word she said. I knew for a fact that he mostly understood what she was saying, but it was like he was having trouble processing everything all of a sudden. "Buddy? Did you hear Xandra?" I asked him. He looked at me and then back at Xandra. I half expected him to jump into Xandra's arms, but instead of tackling her into a bear h.ug, he slowly closed the distance between them and h.ugged her neck. "Is that a yes?" she asked, and he nodded his head. She closed her arms around him and held him tightly. "Mommy." "Yeah. Mommy." "What is it?" "Mommy." Xandra looked over at me. I was confused at first too, but he kept saying mommy and I realized that he wasn't calling out to her but more reeling in the fact that his wish came true. I guess our conversation from the other night really stuck with him, and he was overwhelmed that Xandra was his mom after all. I h.ugged them both and kissed Xandra on the forehead. I couldn't thank her enough for fulfilling such an empty void in Killian's life. "This is all so beautiful, and I'm so ecstatic to be able to witness such a wonderful moment," Jonah gushed with absolute joy and utmost approval in his tone. "Thomas, may I have the papers please?" "Yes, sir," Thomas said as he handed over the documents. He quickly signed them and handed the pen and paper to me. I stood up and put my signature in the notated field and handed the pen to Xandra. I tried to take Killian from her so she could sign it, but he wouldn't let go of her. He shook his head rapidly and tightened his grip around her neck. "Don't worry, I got it," she reassured, and she stood up with Killian in her arms. She turned sideways to look at the paper and balanced Killian with one arm while she with the other. "It is done. Xandra is now legally the mother to Killian McAvoy," Jonah announced. "Hey, I just realized we don't know your last name, Xandra," Chelsea pointed out. "Yeah, it was kind of hard to draw up these papers without a last name for her," Thomas admitted. We all looked at her and realized that they were right. Xandra and Alexa didn't have last names because they had no official birth records. Xandra looked at me and all I could do was shrug. "Why don't you just take ours?" my father asked. "Dad, we're not married yet," I answered. Everyone pondered a bit until Xandra spoke up. "I don't want a random last name, and I obviously don't want Kellen's last name. I would never want to be associated with him that way." "What were you thinking?" I asked her. "Does anyone know my mother's last name?" "You mean the moon goddess?" Chelsea asked. "No." Xandra snapped. "I meant Megan." "Oh, my bad," my sister said, trying not to look like an it. "Wouldn't it be Calloway since she was Sarin's mother as well?" my mom wondered. "Mom, Calloway was her married name." "She's asking for her maiden name," I replied. "Davina," Richard responded. "Megan's maiden name was Davina." "Okay then. Davina it is." Chapter 66. Jasper's POV. "That's great, Xandra, I'm so happy for you." "No, don't be ridiculous, I'm honored you made that decision." "Yes, I promise. Hearing that makes me extremely happy. Thanks for letting me know." "Yeah, he's packing his bag right now." "I know, but it will be okay." "All right, we'll talk soon. Stay positive, everything will work out the way it needs to." "You too. Bye." Sarin hung up the phone as I was coming out of the closet with my bag in hand. "What was that about?" I asked her, setting down my bag by the door before walking over to her. She was sitting in her favorite beanbag chair watching Sam sleep. "That was Xandra. She had some good news." "Oh." I sat down next to her, putting my arm around her and bringing her close to me. "Xandra decided to adopt Killian." They had the adoption a few hours ago, she said with a smile. That's amazing. Good for them. She's going to make a great mom to Killian. I know she is. There's something else. After the adoption, Xandra also decided that she would take my mom's maiden name. So, Griffin's brother-in-law, who's a pack lawyer, drew up those papers, and now, both she and Alexa have the surname of Davina. My eyes widened in surprise. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Can't have a random last name, and I'm fairly certain they wouldn't want the surname of Patterson, I replied. That's exactly what Xandra had said when she made the decision. How do you feel about that? I'm honored. Like I told her. I mean, Calloway is my last name because I'm my father's daughter. I was born to a family who loved me unconditionally, but they didn't have that luxury. I'm positive that my mom loved them, after all, she's their mother too. So, Xandra deciding to take our mom's maiden name makes it feel like she's still with us. At least a part of her, she responded while instinctively rubbing her stomach. I placed my hand over hers. I hated the fact that I had to leave while Sarin was pregnant, but this time, it was for a good reason. She glanced down at my hand over hers, and she intertwined our fingers. We gazed into each other's eyes and shared a passionate K.S.S. It was only supposed to be a see you later K.S.S., but it soon started to turn into more. Blade was pushing through the service because he wanted to spend more time with Sarin before we had to go, but I had to force him back. If we didn't leave soon, the clone and I would run into each other, and we couldn't have that happen. I reluctantly pulled away as I felt my erection strain in my pants. I'm sorry, dearest, but I have to get going, I told her, completely out of breath, as I placed my forehead onto hers. I know. I looked over at Sam, who was passed out in his crib. I got up while pulling Sarin with me and walked over to him. I leaned over and kissed his little forehead. I love you, buddy. I turned to Sarin and hugged her tightly, kissed her neck, and abruptly left before I changed my mind about this whole thing. I grabbed my bag by the door and turned around one last time to look at her. She was standing with her arms crossed but was smiling. She blew me a kiss, and I caught it and held it to my heart. I love you, Jasper. I love you too, baby. See you soon. You be careful. She nodded her head. I took a deep breath and left our room. As I went downstairs, I made arrangements so that only those who knew of our plans were informed that I was leaving now. The rest of the pack would have no clue because I had no idea if any other moles were working for Killian at this point in time. With the West family murdered, it only made sense that Killian would try to find another patsy for his crew of betrayers. It was almost 2 in the morning when I left the pack house, and I made sure that I set out in wolf form. I also informed all of the alphas about the designated location of our meeting in the dungeon where Kale Thornwood and Tessa held all of the human captives 2 years ago, since Blood Moon's territory was now a barren wasteland. But, before going there, each alpha had to find another hiding place for 48 hours to ensure someone didn't follow them. It was ballsy to choose Blood Moon as our rendezvous, but we were out of options. There were also specific instructions to avoid bringing any electronic devices, and everyone was to travel strictly in wolf form to evade being tracked via satellite. We would have to do everything old school if we wanted to maintain the element of surprise. I also made certain all of the clones were given 2 specific memories. Killian was a threat to all of our packs, and they, too, would have an alphas meeting at Blue Lake. Considering my pack house was the largest of all the packs in the region, it wouldn't seem the least bit suspicious to have the meeting there. Plus, it would allow my plan with Sarin to be put into motion. Whatever Killian had planned for us, or I should say, our clones, it would let him think that he won, and it would give Kale Thornwood a reason to go after Sarin. And this was specifically our plan, and ours alone. We decided that it would be best if no one else knew, as it would provide the legitimacy we needed to make Kale Thornwood believe he had truly gotten what he wanted. After traveling for a few hours and making sure that I was not followed, I headed towards the condo where Sarin stayed when she gave birth to Sam. William kept the condo in his name to be used as a safe house for situations such as this. Since no one even knew about it, this place was definitely coming in handy now. Sarin still had her copy of the key, and she had given it to me earlier today. When I arrived at the condo, I unlocked the door and quickly scouted the place without turning on any lights to check if the coast was clear. With everything that was going on, one couldn't be too cautious of their surroundings. After I was absolutely certain that I was alone, I turned on the hallway and living room lights and threw my bag onto the table. I went to the fridge and was thrilled to see it had been recently stocked with bottled water and beer. The cupboards had some dry foods that would sustain me long enough until I had to meet with the other alphas. I grabbed some water and a bag of beef jerky and went into Sarin's old room. I smiled, seeing that it was still the same as she left it, minus the crib. After Sarin had left the condo, William and Olivia had moved the crib to their room upstairs so that whenever we brought Sam over for them to babysit, he could stay in their room. I smiled again while thinking how it wasn't that long ago, but somehow still felt like ages ago. Looking around the room brought back a lot of memories, both good and bad. To think that the last time I was here, Sarin was giving birth to Sam, which was one of the best moments of my life. But I can't help but feel resentment towards this place, since this is where Sarin was hiding away from me. Sarin was right when she said that I was having issues letting go of the past. It's no secret that it still haunts me to this day that I came so close to losing her and Sam. I'll never forgive Layla for her treacherous actions, and it took me a long time to forgive Svetlana. But at least she had the decency to apologize and side with us at the end of it all. Why do you look so down? I shot my head up when I heard a familiar and kind voice. Selene? Why are you here? Checking in. And I wanted to make sure that you knew where you're doing, she answered, eyeing me up and down disapprovingly. What? Do not what me, Jasper Valencia. Have you forgotten who I am? Of course not, but I don't get why you're looking at me like I've committed some grave crime, I replied. Jasper, this whole thing you're planning is gutsy. What would you like me to do? Just let Killian roam around freely as he picks off our pack members one by one? If you know everything, you know what Sarin saw the night that Griffin was supposed to be announced as Alpha at Golden Moon. Killian would have killed us all. And not just Alphas. He would have killed all of the Betas, Golden Moon's pups, my son. I shouted the last part, as that is what got to me the most. She let out a deep and troubled sigh. Yes, I do know what Sarin saw, and as much as it pains to admit this, you're right. Killian needs to be stopped. But turning to a dark witch for assistance. Svetlana has done nothing but help me and Sarin since she found out who Sarin was. I don't know if it's out of loyalty, fear, or both, but she's the only one who can help us since Olivia and William left to be with you and the other gods and goddesses, I defended. She let out another sigh, but this time one of frustration. Jasper, what I am saying is, why won't you turn to me for help? She asked, totally b.a-third. Are you serious right now? I replied, sounding completely irritated because I was. You're seriously asking me why we never turned to you for help when you're the one who never bothered to show yourself to us in the first place. Watch your tone, Jasper. No. I shouted back at her. She looked thoroughly taken aback by my insolence. Moon goddess or not, you have no right to expect Sarin and me to come to you for help or guidance when you're the one who disregarded us in the first place. Sarin told me what you told her when she traveled to the past. You're the one who led Killian to find her. Your actions are what led Sarin to succumb to becoming a child slave. I already explained this to her. I needed her to survive, right? Yet. She told me that too. But you do realize that you could have easily led me to find her. To bring her to where she belonged in the first place. Selene looked at me incredulously before she snapped. Jasper Valencia. Who are you to tell me what I should have and should not have done? I am the moon goddess. Mother to all werewolves, she roared at me. Sarin was a special child who had lost everything. If I had led you to find her, then she would have died an early death. What are you talking about? Jasper, do you think that all those women in your pack would have allowed a mere child to get the best of them? Do you remember a certain she-wolf who almost ruined your bond with Sarin completely? Layla. Yes, you. She pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed in utter frustration. Jasper, if I had allowed you to take in Sarin, Layla, and every other scorned she-wolf you ever slept with would have tried to have her killed. In addition to that, her identity would have been revealed before she came into her powers, and she would have been helpless. I would have protected her against the vampire that was hell-bent on making her his bride? How would you have been able to keep her safe when you, too, would have been killed? What? Jasper, had Sarin gone with anyone else at that time, she would have died. Everyone would have died. Do you know that people would go to great lengths just to get their hands on a primordial before they were to gain their powers? She wasn't just a target for the vampire. She was a target for all supernaturals. The blood of a primordial is so coveted. That's why their identities are never exposed until they become of age. If the elders were to know who Sarin was, they would have exposed her and inadvertently put her life, and everyone else's, in grave danger. I get that you're angry because my choices led to her being bust and tortured for years on end, but it kept her alive. When I say I needed Sarin to live, it's because she would have died in any other circumstance, she bellowed at me. I gulped and bowed my head in submission. I apologize for my harsh words, moon goddess. I was out of line, I repented. Jasper, I don't make mistakes. I am not trying to sound C*KY or arrogant, but it's a fact. I would never have mated Sarin to you if I didn't think you wouldn't love her unconditionally, but I also knew that her identity would not be safe if she were to grow up at Blue Lake. She would have been used as a pawn to gain power by the elders, and she-wolves in your pack would have found ways to get rid of her. Whether it be death or for money. Are you telling me that my own pack members would have sold their future Luna for money? People do crazy things for love or greed, she said point blank. I knew for a fact that she was referring to Layla. You're right to say that I haven't been there for you and her, but it's like I told William, I was never meant to be her goddess. But I promised Megan and Gideon that I would keep an eye on her until you two were reunited. What? What do you mean you promised Uncle Mitch and Aunt Megan? Jasper, where do you think a werewolf's spirit goes when they pass? Heaven or hell? No, you dim-witted boy, that's for humans. Werewolves are supernatural. Bad or good, a werewolf and other supernatural creatures come to the lunar kingdom for judgment. Just like a human must be judged at the gates of heaven. When Gideon and Megan died, you know what the first thing they did at the gates of the kingdom was? They begged me to watch over Sarin since they couldn't anymore. Even though they knew that I wasn't her goddess, even if I was theirs. Wait, they knew Sarin wasn't a normal werewolf. They knew the moment they found out they were mates. They knew that their children wouldn't be normal. Mitch and Megan were both well aware of the primordials that had once existed. Because of this, when Sarin was born, Megan chose the name Ryan, and Mitch commanded Silver Lake to keep her gender a secret. To tell the world that she was a boy. Only a select few knew she was a girl, but again, they never told anyone who she was. That's why my dad was surprised when the elders told him about Sarin when I brought her back to Blue Lake. Exactly. Gideon and Megan took all of the necessary precautions to keep her safe until she became of age, but alas, Killian got in the way of that. Do they know what happened to her? Of course, they do. They know everything, she replied. She gave me a knowing look, and it was then I realized that they knew what happened with Layla and what I had done to Sarin. I cringed, knowing that I would have to face them one day. Jasper, I didn't come here to defend myself, even though that's what this turned into. I came here to let you know that I'm not happy with your plans to have her kidnapped, but I can understand why. You want to show Sarin that you trust her to make the right decisions with a clear mind and not out of pure rage. Right. I don't want her killing someone out of anger. She's too good for that. But her powers are the strongest when she is angry. Sarin is not Archael Thornwood. And even if she kills Killian and his family out of anger, she would never be punished because it would be justified. Sarin isn't a killer. I don't want her hands stained. They already are. She killed Layla. She killed the vampire. She killed Marvin. Any more? I don't want her hands stained anymore. I ululated. She's a Luna, Jasper. You can't prevent her from killing again, just like she can't stop you from killing either. Eventually, even Xandra will kill. It's the werewolf's nature as a predator. We always will for survival. And I say we because I'm not exempt from that fact. Stop coddling her. I can't stop this from happening, especially since Xandra has already foreseen the future. But I can tell you that when the time comes, for better or for worse, you will have to choose whose life is worth saving. What are you talking about? You'll see. Chapter 67. Sarin's POV. I wasn't sure if it was just the hormones or the fact that we managed to repair our bond, but I felt like I was unraveling a bit without Jasper for the past 3 days. It's only been 2 days since his clone showed up out of nowhere, and I was already full of regret about going along with his stupid clone plan. Aside from the select few that were in on the plan, all of the pack members were none the wiser that this thing was an imposter. The thing that I hated the most was when it came to being intimate with it. It felt like I was stuck on a carousel with brightly painted horses that weren't real, going round and round in circles. It wasn't Jasper no matter how much it sounded like, looked like, and acted like him. I was fighting tooth and nail, trying not to be disgusted with the clone, especially since I was the one who told Xandra to uck it up. I had to take my own advice, but it was a lot easier said than done. I started to notice things I never did before, like the number of tiles on the floor between our offices and how many light fixtures were in the hallway. I found any reason to stall so I could avoid being around the clone as much as possible. Even now, I was currently standing outside of his office door, trying to find an excuse not to go in there, but I knew I had none. I kept raising my fist to the door to knock but lowered it after hesitating. I did that 3 times before I finally just decided to go in. Why would I have to knock anyway? When I opened the door, the clone snapped his head up and smiled. I thought seeing his smile would make me feel a little better, but all it did was make me miss the real Jasper even more. I really hoped this plan of his works out in our favor, otherwise, he and I would be having some words. Hey, dearest. What's up? He greeted me. Nothing, I just wanted to see what you were up to, I replied and sat down in the guest chair. I just got off of the phone with Griffin and Richard. All of the alphas in the region agree that we need to have an alphas meeting to decide on how we're going to proceed in dealing with Killian and the SHT he's been doing lately. Well, it's about time. He's been ruining so many lives. I honestly wish I could just go over there and kill him myself. Believe me, I know. Hopefully, after this meeting, we all decide on something, and we can act on it right away without having to beat around the bush, he told me. I nodded my head and leaned back in the chair. By sheer instinct, I put my hand on my stomach and rubbed it. Are you okay? He asked me. I looked over at him, and he had a confused look on his face as he eyed what I was doing. I lifted an eyebrow in my own confusion and then realized that he didn't know I was pregnant. I almost scoffed to myself, realizing that Jasper didn't want the clone stealing his spotlight when it came to the pregnancy. Yeah, I'm fine, just a small stomachache. I think I ate too much at lunchtime, I said, lying straight out of my teeth. It's probably because you ate so much steak and potatoes, baby. That's not a healthy diet, regardless of us being werewolves, he replied, shaking his head at me. Well, excuse me for being carnivorous, I snapped back. He smirked at me. Anyway, when and where is the alpha meeting going to take place? It's going to be this weekend, and it's going to be here. I knew that it would be here since Jasper had mentioned that before he had left, but I knew that I needed to be somewhat surprised. Here? Jasper, why does it have to be here? Because we have the biggest packhouse and some of the best defenses. Besides, Killian would be too stupid to try and do anything here. He would be easily caught, and honestly, that's actually the plan. What? Are you telling me that this meeting is also a ruse to try and get him to attack us? Not attack, show himself. Even if he were to try and attack, he would be outnumbered, the clone replied. And how do you know that? How do you know he doesn't have some army under his wing just waiting for instructions on how to kill all of us? Have you not thought about Sam? Your niece? All of the younger pups in this pack. Sarin, calm down. No, Jasper, I'm not going to calm down. You're being reckless and Archael Thornwood. Stop thinking about yourself and your personal vendetta against Killian and Kale Thornwood, and think about the pack members that will be potentially caught in a crossfire if a war were to break out here. I was getting frustrated and was praying that this was just the clone's way of thinking and not Jasper's actual way of thinking. Sarin, you have a personal vendetta against them as much as I do. You're so hell-bent on getting rid of them that you tried to kill them yourself. At least I'm not trying to bring the enemy to our front door like you are. I would much rather take the fight to them. And you know better than anyone that I could kill them with a snap of a finger. Then you would be a cold-blooded murderer just like them, he shouted at me. I was taken aback by his honesty and again found myself hoping this was the clone talking and not Jasper's actual thoughts. I cannot believe you just said that, I gritted my teeth. Sarin, that's not, I didn't even let him finish before storming out of his office and slamming the door behind me, shaking the entire floor because of it. I marched down the hall and went into our room, locking the door behind me. I was so frustrated at what he said and just grunted. You don't seem very happy right now, a familiar voice said. I turned to see William sitting on my vanity chair. William! I shouted and ran into his arms. He gave me a warm h.ug, and I just snuggled into his c.hest. Hello, Sarin. Goddess, I miss you so much. I miss you too, child. Now, tell me what's eating at you, he said as he pulled away and sat me down on the chaise lounge at the foot of the bed. Jasper's stupid clone. Ah, yes, the clones. You know, it's one thing when Jasper questions my motives and logic, but hearing his damn clone doing the same thing is the most frustrating thing. He said that I would be a cold-blooded murderer just like Killian if I just went over there and ended them. Can you believe that? I exclaimed in disbelief. Yes, I can, but I said the same thing to you, remember, he recalled. You didn't flat out say murderer the way he did. He's acting as if I've never killed anyone before. Everyone I've ever killed has been justified. Whether it was in self-defense or handing out a warranted death sentence. I know, Sarin. I never said they weren't justified. Then why does it feel like you're siding with him? I'm not siding with anyone. I'm here to listen to you vent. Nothing more, William said with a smile. This plan is stupid. This whole thing with the clones is stupid. I don't understand Jasper and his way of thinking. That's the most frustrating thing about him. His ideas never make any sense. To you, they don't. No, they don't. All of this would have been so much easier had we just got all of the packs together and raided Silver Lake's territory to get rid of Killian when we first figured out where he's been hiding. I shouted and stood to my feet. I stomped around the room. Sarin, then everyone would have died. I stopped mid-step and turned around to face William. What? Sarin, after Olivia and I left and got settled in the kingdom, I did some research into what the girls said they saw when they went to the past. What do you mean? The poison that was used to kill your father. I felt like I was slapped across the face when he mentioned the poison. I had almost forgotten about it. Unfortunately, I'm not permitted to spy on other supernatural beings, but I am allowed to put out feelers and do research on my own, and so I did. Turns out the poison Killian used is called dimethylmercury, and it's almost 85% lethal. 85%? So you're saying that there's a 15% chance someone could survive if exposed? That doesn't seem too bad. Unless they ingest it in high doses, or it's directly exposed to the heart or brain, he replied. Oh. Yeah. And a small birdie told me that Killian seems to have an abundance of this poison at his disposal. Courtesy of the Dark Witch who is working with him. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Killian had more of this poison. When you say abundance, I mean, enough to wipe out this entire pack, and then some. The goosebumps that overtook my body were nothing like I had ever felt before. Why is he so obsessed with trying to kill all of us? I was utterly exasperated. I don't even think he knows why he has become so obsessed, to be quite frank with you, Sarin. That man is disturbed. So is his entire family. I nodded my head and just sighed. I wasn't even the least bit shocked to hear that all of them have completely lost their minds. You would think that Nicole would have rejected Killian by now and taken Tessa and Cale Thornwood and just left to be rogues. At least, they would have had a fighting chance to survive. I don't understand why they can't just go away. I mean, they've literally escaped death because of the betrayer from the Elders' Council, and yet, they're hiding out practically in plain sight. Do they not realize that staying and planning to kill all of us is just going to further warrant their deaths? Say that they are successful in killing all of the alphas, the word is going to get out. No one is going to take him seriously. No one. You're not wrong, but you know as well as anyone that that man can care less if he's putting his own life at risk or that of his family's, William insisted as he stood up. Wait, where are you going? I asked. Sarin, you know I can't stay long. I have work I need to do. But Sarin, he cut me off and opened his arms. I went to him and hugged him. I'm always here for you, but you can't expect me to come all the time, nor can you expect me to stay either. I hate that you can read my mind, I pouted. He chuckled and kissed the top of my head. Don't be hard on Jasper when this is all over, but also, don't take your anger out on his clone. Clone or not, that's still a form of Jasper. I hated that he was right but just nodded my head. He pulled away and looked at me with a smile. I'll be nearby, he said and left. I let out a sigh and just slumped. I just wanted to take a long bath after this, but my alone time was disrupted with knocking on the door. I went to the door and was surprised to see Milan. What are you doing here? I have a bone to pick with you, she said, pushing the door open and letting herself in. Come in, I said sarcastically and closed the door behind me. I turned to face Milan, and she was glaring at me. What? Are you the real Sarin? What? Are you the real Sarin? She asked again. I gaped at her, completely offended at the fact that she thought I was a clone. Of course I am. What the hell, Milan? Prove it. Seriously? I exclaimed. She held her ground. I grunted in frustration but decided to entertain her crap anyway. I PPED out of my clothes and shifted into Callie. Are you happy now, you crazy BH? I mind-linked her. Yes, she replied. Callie shook her fur and stretched her legs for a minute before giving me control again. When I shifted back, I glared at Milan. What the hell? Why would you think I was a clone? I shouted as I put my clothes back on. One can't be too careful, Sarin. Jasper's clone is driving me insane, she complained and rubbed her temples. Why? He doesn't know that I have kids. And he's been reprimanding me for missing training for the past couple of days he's been here. I have 2 babies to take care of. I'm still child. What do you want me to do about it? You're the Luna and his mate. Get him to back off. Milan, the only way to get him to back off would be to tell him you have kids, duh. I'm not telling the clone I have kids. You saw what happened with your clone a few years ago. She nearly lost it when things stopped making sense. My suddenly having twins really isn't going to make sense. Ugh. I grunted for what felt like the 100th time today. This whole clone thing was already disrupting our everyday lives, and on top of that, I had to prepare for this damn alphas meeting in more ways than one, and I couldn't even tell anyone about it. I rolled my eyes and hung my head. I don't care what William said, I'm going to kill Jasper when all of this is over. If I was having this many problems with my Jasper clone, I could only imagine how the other Lunas of the region were doing with their clones. Unfortunately, the male species was known to glaze over the finer details, which only made things 10 times more aggravating. I was even more worried about Xandra. I knew for a fact that they did the adoption after they had given Svetlana the DNA samples, which means Griffin's clone wouldn't know about it. I could only imagine the amount of stress she's under as a new Luna and new mom. Chapter 68. Jasper's POV. As all of the alphas and their would-be successors gathered at the meeting spot, the tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. I was feeling the pressure and had so much on my mind, but I felt compelled to remain as cool, calm, and collected as possible since this was all my idea. With everyone present, we were just waiting to hear back from Kendrick. He was the only person I entrusted to leave in charge of getting in contact with me once Kellen showed himself and carried out whatever ridiculous plan he had for us. In order to keep a low profile, we stayed deep within the cave and only left in pairs to use the restroom or go hunt for food in our wolf forms. Considering the state of Blood Moon, it was no wonder why even rogues wouldn't come here to squat. It was worse than the scene from The Lion King where Simba returns to take back his pride. If it were me, I would never let a pack territory fall to its knees to the extent Blood Moon did, only to become drier and far more lifeless than the Sahara Desert. Alpha Jasper, I really hope you know what you're doing, Alpha Maximus of the Crescent Moon Pack said to me as he leaned against the wall, resting his elbows on his knees. Alpha Maximus, I assure you, at the very least, we will catch Killian in the act of killing our clones. That alone will give us the evidence we need to prove that his ultimate goal is to get rid of us and take over our packs, I replied. Or worse, Killian will try to do to our packs what he did to young Luna Sarins all those years ago, Alpha Ramsey of the Midnight Moon Pack interjected. We were all there when Jasper here outed Killian for what he did. That is true, but it was also brought to light that Killian staged the challenge and was bound to kill Gideon anyway, Richard answered. There's more to it than all of that, Griffin revealed, catching everyone's attention. My mate and her sister are also blessed, for lack of a better term, and they both were able to ascertain that Killian had poisoned Alpha Gideon Blackthorn. What? That is crazy talk. Where is the proof? Everyone was in an uproar, and the look of disgust was written all over their faces. I was a little irritated that Griffin gave away that information, but then again, I figured that this information would help us. Calm down, everyone, Jonah said, getting to his feet. It is true that the young Luna and Beta of Golden Moon are gifted. And from what I was told, Killian not only faked the challenge but also cheated at that. As an elder of this region, I have approved this mission, and I lay down the authorization that Killian Patterson, and his family, are to be killed on sight. There will be no trial as he was already commissioned for execution. His mate and children will also meet the same fate. There will be no mercy shown to them in light of this new development. Jasper, do you know what kind of poison was used? Ramsey asked me. I was about to answer him, but someone else beat me to the punch. It's called dimethylmercury. We all turned around. Everyone gasped in horror and shock at the individual standing before us. My stars, Jonah said, completely astounded. UNC. Uncle. Uncle Mitch. I exclaimed. Hello, Jasper, he greeted me and smiled. Gideon, Richard seemed exasperated. Richard, it's been a long time, old friend. Uncle Mitch. I don't. But how? A mutual friend William, he responded with a wink. My eyes widened, and I looked over at Griffin and Richard. I don't have much time. I'm not allowed to be here for very long. But I wanted to come and tell you that your plan is going to backfire. What? Griffin and I said in unison. Someone you all trust has betrayed you. And Killian knows what you are up to. He knows that those in your place are clones, Mitch informed us. Why are you telling us this? I asked him. Because the meeting is a trap. And you need to get to Blue Lake, now, he shouted at me and gave me a knowing look. Sarin. Mitch nodded, and I didn't hesitate to shift into Blade, Decale Thornwooding out of the cave like a falcon swooping down to catch its prey. Jasper, wait! I turned around as I made it to the entrance. The poison there is no cure. I nodded my head. I knew what he wanted to say was that if I wasn't careful, I was going to die. But my life would have no meaning if Sarin were to be exposed. I could hear countless paws behind me. I looked back to see and realized that Griffin, Richard, and Jonah were right on my heels, while the other alphas and their parties were veering off in different directions, no doubt trying to get back to their packs. I couldn't believe that I was naive enough to think that this plan would be foolproof. I knew that there had to be more moles in our packs, but I never considered that it would be someone that we had trusted with this plan of ours. Selene was right. I bounded as fast I could go towards Blue Lake and was grateful that Blood Moon wasn't very far from there. We sprinted at our full speeds through the wilderness and made it over the mountain that enclosed Blue Lake's territory within half an hour. I skidded to a stop when I saw the destruction across the land. Griffin and Richard flanked me while Jonah came up next to Richard. I looked towards the castle and saw that part of the walls had been absolutely demolished. I tried to mind link Kendrick, but to no avail. I tried to reach someone, anyone, but there was no answer. Not even Sarin. I snarled and pushed Blade full force as we ran down the mountain to get to the castle. As we were running, our view of the destruction became more apparent. There were a few dead bodies with pack members mourning their loss. I made a mental note to find out how many had perished and who they were. I pushed through the debris in front of the castle and leaped through one of the gaping holes in the structure. Jasper! I heard a familiar voice. I turned to see Milan running towards me. I knew she must have recently shifted because she was only wearing a sports bra and shorts. I shifted back as well, followed by Griffin, Richard, and Jonah. A few male pack members conveniently tossed us some shorts to put on. What spot happened? I asked her, gesturing towards the chaos within the castle. Kellen Patterson is what happened, she shouted at me, full of anger. Young Gamma, please explain how this happened. Jonah calmly asked her, his voice stern. Milan took a deep breath and nodded her head, letting out a sigh as she gathered her thoughts. She was about to say something when Jason came up running next to her. Where are the kids? He interrupted. With my parents in the bunker. You left our twins. Jason chastised her. Our home was under attack. I'm one of the best fighters in this pack, and you know it, she screamed. You're also a mother to 2 infants. Enough! I roared, getting their attention along with everyone else that was scurrying to do damage control. What spot happened? I asked again. It appears that one of the packs has a mole, Jason answered. Yet, we know, someone betrayed us and told Kellen that there were clones in our places. Get to the point where your pack territory looks like a tornado hit it. Griffin shouted at them, also growing very impatient. Wait, what do you mean you know? Milan asked. Wait, how the hell did you even know to come back here? An old friend, Richard answered. Now, tell us what happened, he ordered. Believe it or not, a tornado did hit us, Jason responded. Not just a tornado, multiple. More like a dozen, Milan added and huffed. What? I was speechless, and so were the others. Start from the beginning, Jonas said. Milan and Jason looked at each other for a brief moment before they dove into a lengthy explanation of what happened. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.